So, welcome back. We've had a couple of weeks breaks from Black Clover, including one more on the fault of me, especially with actually skipping a chapter on there, as mainly for the fact that the reason what happened with that one was the straight up fact is that a lot was going on during the Holotimes season for me, so I wasn't able to really get into any point in time to try and cover chapter 188. But so, for specials, and as you know, we haven't missed a chapter so far of Black Clover, and I don't think we're trying to keep that a little bit of that schedule up until like chapter 200. I feel we are going to be doing a double review. So we're going to be doing both chapter 188 and 189 for these chapters on there, and quite a few things to cover, especially with this one being the final conclusion between the Aster and the rest of the Black Bulls versus Gauche and Mary, and definitely with what we got, something like that. Chapter 188 was definitely a lot more of the conclusion for Gauche and Mary and the rest of the elves, while 88 was a lot more of a Henry chapter, which was something nice, especially that we got to tell about him. Just the fact of the matter is that we finally know about him. We actually get a little bit more of his backstory, apart from that all we ever got told beforehand is that he was just flat out just left here, and we didn't get his full backstory for the most part, as we finally get to understand of his barely his life force and all that was barely just maintained through his magic. He had a massive pool of magic into general with, but the problem is that his organs, as I was talking about, his organs, his blood vessels, and even his muscles have all been crippled and enfeebled, and he cannot survive without expending mana. And he was which another thing to find out is that he is actually a noble, which that makes, I feel around about half the cast, or at least a majority of them, nobility, which I find interesting on there. I think as well, with what I put on there, because with what we know a lot about noble households and how a lot of them, well, let's be honest here, they're absolute dicks. I find it kind of interesting that Henry was added to since Noelle was kind of more that outcast for a lot of people, whereas she was nobility for the most part. She was the one was oh, I'm on there, so I don't understand from a lot of you commoners. But the fact that Henry's involved in there as well, I kind of like that additional fact that they put onto there, and especially with how they were even discussing, it's he may have died, but we cannot our family name be tarnished and all that by such terrible offense. And it's and immediately it's they wouldn't accept him, the family wouldn't accept him for the way he was, and neither would the world. So it was alright then. So what they did and all that is they just gave him a freaking a whole entire cattle. It was his warped love of hierarchical society was given to Henry, and it was just until then everyone thought to him that he was dead. And with what we had with the previous chapter with 187, he was I'm going to use everything that I have to try and save and all that, even if that means giving this life that was given to me by everybody and all that. I don't care what happens to me. I need to save Gauche, and I need to save the others. So immediately where it was you can't do this, is immediately Aster's using in his Black Bull form on there. It's he's having a difficulty going around on there, as Henry's trying to transform. He's look, I'm able to try and reflect this, and we're having an issue with Mary just trying using her eye magic. Then they come up with the idea of what if we convert Henry's little tiny mini bull form that he had, and we had the Grey convert it into her own mirror form, trying to reflect it back at them. And it was no, this isn't working right now. And it was oh crap, what we need to do right there. And it was immediately from this distance, Gauche is firing, Henry goes and blows off one part of the whole conversion that had Aster, Gordon, and Grey in there. It was oh, we actually have this right now. And using this last ditch effort and all that, he actually breaks out of the castle, something he hasn't been able to do for a very long time on there. And he's if there's only one person that's going to die in here, it's me, as he goes in there to try and use this ability where it's he uses his own mana consumption, which he is able to take from other people as well, where I found that was an interesting ability with how he uses his powers on there to keep his own magical field to keep himself alive. But he uses it to weaken Gauche into a state like that, where it's the massive pull and all that, it's it is disrupting him and all that. And it was oh, you're the only one that's gonna disappear. And it was just no, I can't let it do. Aster's screaming, you can't do this yet. And then this really nice conversation that you get taken back with Asta talking to like Henry and saying like, oh yeah, like their first like kind of meeting and everything, and it was like, yeah, you're Henry, right? Yeah, I heard you got some strange illness that drains people mana and all that. Where he's like, well, nice to meet you, I'm Asta and all that. I'm the newest member around here, and I heard about you from the captain and all that. But don't worry, I can talk to you because I have no mana anyway, so it's gonna be fine. We get to hang out all the time. And it was immediately and all that. It's like they were talking about it. It was just like, well, maybe once I get controlling my magic better, then I can actually, like leave this room and all that on my own. And it's just like, and Asta's just there smirking, and it's just like, well, when it comes to that day and all that, I'll be like waiting for that and all that, and then we'll get to meet everyone, and things will be more fun around here for you. It's like this nice little just genuine talk. And then having this moment where like Henry's like, I just tried to do this suicide dive. I don't want to die. No. Like, he's there, like, putting about, like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Like, he's having this last moment. It's just like, I want to live with them. I want to, like, live with all my friends. And it's like, interesting turn of events where it's like, you always see people doing, like, the sacrifice, suicidal dive when it comes to these sort of things. But Henry has this change of heart. He has this change of mind where it's like, no, that's not me. I don't want to do that. And then Gordon's there like, I need to bail him out right now. And it's just like, as like Gordon goes in, uses his poison magic to try and buy him time. I liked one thing that was like kind of really cool about this, where they go in and all that, like they Asta throws one of his blades out, throwing it towards Henry. They transform his sword, long neck, like grey, into like this little bouncy cloud to try and even save them, and then Asta uses the other blade to come in and take out both Gauche and like Mary. I was like, that was the conclusion of that chat. Like, that is like a very clever way to use his blade. I was like, he actually used it, and with the combination of like Gordon buying time for that last little ditch effort, and also as well using Grey's whole converting and transformation magic, I was like, that's a clever way to use like his blade. And they was like, you need to use this now. I know Grey can convert this, like using the blade itself. And I was like, that is overall, like, I think, like, if anything I can describe and all that, like 1AA had some very nice surprises for like using with Asta combining with his abilities, not to mention as well, like we had this nice little bit with Henry. Like, it was definitely the majority of that chapter, like 3/4 of that chapter, was dedicated to Henry, with a lot of like how his body has always been feebled, it's always been crippled, and like the fact that how people were afraid of him is like, we can't even get near him because of the fact that he's just going to drain our magic, so we just put him in this massive castle somewhere, and it's like, no one's going to deal with it. I kind of like that though, the fact that Yami was able to go in there and talk to him, even the fact that he could drain and leech off him, but he's like, I am strong enough that I can actually stay here and talk to you, and I don't care. Like, take some of my mana, like, you can do that whatsoever, but like, Yami, that's just the thing. Yami, like, takes flaws and alls. He's like, I don't care. You're family at the end of the day. Like, you're stuck in with me. We're all a bunch of misfits, and we all have our issues, but, we can become better people through them, like, no matter what. And it's like, everyone here kind of can relate to that. So it was overall, I think that was a very nice chapter. Now we're going to be moving on to 189, which was obviously the conclusion to the Gauche stuff and Mary with Asta, because we had that, like, moment with them, like, he was able to come in with his last blade, like, on there that he used, slashing, hitting both of them, and, like, Gauche is there, like, laying down. He's like, what the hell? And all that. Like, he managed to get me on there. And it was like, just the one hit and all that, managed to get in and connect to him. And it's like, it was the one that he needed to put, to pop him down. Already being slightly drained from what we had as well with, like, Henry coming in. Then we get a moment of him, like, coming back to, like, remembering that moment, like, with the entirety of the elves being killed, where it's like, what's going on? Like, I can't use magic. I'm being, like, it's being sealed and all that. It's like, we can't leave, don't leave the barrier. Like, what's going on? Like that. Our magic's being stolen. It's like something that's being, like violating the very fabric of reason. And they talk about that this ancient human artifact that they had was mainly trapping them into this giant's, like, whole dome area. And then we see the nobles, which, we see one there that looks awfully familiar to the king. There is one that looks like Queen Elizabeth. I'm not gonna lie, they're just like, as a Brit, I was like, alright, then why is Queen Lizzie there, like, just roaming around? Like, I was like, you see them all, it's like, this is how the nobles originating, saying this is how they were able to go and give this massive flow of power to themselves, because this is, when they talk about, this is where nobility get all their power from, it's because of the fact that they stole it. So when we think about the Silvers, like when we think about the Golden Dawn, we think of all the nobility. The only reason that they even have that source of power is because they fucked over the elves thousands upon thousands of years ago. Like, this is what they had. It's just like, and when they talk about like this entire thing with like everything with Raya, like, and everything with like the elves and all that, on with Leet, like they talk about the princess was a lost cause, and she's actually carrying their child. Like they discuss it, like she's even like unfit to be royalty, let alone like human. It's like no matter what and all that, it's like they just talk like thinking about like walking around with the likes of that. Like they are completely fucking them over, and it's like imagining that a lot of the elves thought was like if it wasn't for her coming into Leet's life, then it fueled more of the fire, because it was like she may have accidentally brought in the artifact. That may have been the case, and it's like she was carrying their child. It was like, oh dear God. And it could be the fact that that exactly could have been what a lot of like I still think and all that could potentially be from what he was talking about with how he didn't awaken or anything, like whether the fact that he is the reincarnation of Leet or whether or not he is Leet's child in fact. So because again it's still one of the mysteries that we haven't really fully explored yet, which is the origins of Asta and Yuna themselves, which will be like looking around. And he's like something that like when we're talking about Gauche is like his rage and all that, and you see like his eye, like one of them being like ripped out on there, and it's just like, I don't care, like I don't tear everything out the ground and all that, I'm never gonna feel whole again, like this disgusting repulsive like humans, they want me puke and all that, I can't comprehend why they do this and all that, their own selfish desire. Like he is screaming with this irrational anger that he has inside of him. But then he looks, and then he's like, I don't like, and even Gauche as well, like I'm talking to the elf part of him as well, who's still in there. It's just like, I I don't feel this from Asta. I don't feel this from Gordon or Gray, like Henry. I don't feel it from these humans. There's something off with these guys and all that, and it was just like, and finally having that realization, it was like, yeah, those no matter, there's no defending those pieces of shit. There's no absolute defense from them. The thing of the matter is like they got done dirty, but just for the fact that like like with these people that were supposed to represent your race does not mean every single human being on this planet is a horrible piece. It comes back to real life in that sort of way as well, where it's like we see a lot of like when it comes to the news, when it comes to media in general, we always see a lot more of the darker and more miserable parts of life because it impacts us more than just hearing those little bits of good news. That's just how human minds just are worked like that. It just this little nagging feeling on there where it's like that's why depression can last for so long, because of that reason. And it was like, you look about someone like their entire families and lives, they were taken away from them, and the second chance that they were able to get, and of chance to enact revenge, it's like this whole realization that I can't. I'm now realizing like how fruitless this is. It's a very depressing little part to this chapter, and it was like immediately it's saying like he was mentioning it's like my last and all that, it won't be long before my wicked heart rages out of control again and I'm gonna lose myself to like anger. And like he talks to his sister on that, it's just like I'm sorry sis, or like what Mary's like elf form like Ekka, like it was like I'm sorry about this and all that, and like she's just holding on and she's like it's fine, but I want that nicer like side of you, which we did see of like Gauche's like elven form, where it's like we saw that form of him before, but it's like this version of him and all that, like it was like this is the one consumed by rage and hatred. This is not the version that we're used to, and it's like how Gauche is as well. Although not consumed by hatred, it's like he really was a lot more of the lone wolf out of the group. And Asta kind of realizing this moment is just like putting his blade to his like his body, and he's like, I'm sorry, I need my friends back though, and I'm just gonna have to take them back, like that, full on knowing, and Asta admitting that he is technically killing these people on there, and he's like, this is gonna cancel the forbidden spell. And it's just like, and when he's looking around there, and it's like discussing with it, it's like, even after all the hard work and all that you fought for, and he's like, I'm sorry Patri, I'm sorry Raiha, just let me die like this. And he's just like, And he literally more that it's like, and when he mentions all that, it's like, huh, such a convenient power that can make it like anything never happened in the first place. Do you really think that exists, boy, and all that? The price they're using such power must always be paid in the end. Always. And all that. If nothing else engraved is deep upon your heart, human. And that, like, this little sad moment with, like, Aster just kind of realized with, like, especially with how his power is and how they're talking about what is going to go down with, like, this entire, like, their entire plan. And it's just, like, Aster's there paying respects to, like, these two, where it's like, I'm not going to forget you two, no matter what. Like, on there, paying his, like, last kind of humble respects to this guy. And it was, like, immediately then coming back to a little bit of like comedy and all that, like where it's like, oh, wake up, Gauche, and all that. Gauche, and Gordon's like got this really creepy face on there, and he's like scared out of his life, and headbutts Grey, and then a nice little moment with like, you know, Mary kind of crying, saying like, oh, I'm sorry that we might have failed to hurt you, and it's just like, well, we're glad. And Gauche having this little moment of being admitting to himself and all that. It's like, I got all you guys hurt and all that. I never think about anyone else but myself and Mary and all that. And he's like, even after I joined the Bulls and all that, I never had any intent of getting buddy with any of you guys. And after all, from the bottom of my heart, I never trusted any of you guys. But I'm a piece of shit. You should have left me alone on that. And he's just like, look, stop talking about this. Like, guys, you should have realized this last time. Come on, look at us. We're fine. Like, we're gonna be all okay here and all that. Like, you should be saying that right now and all that. Like, what are the words that you should be saying right now, Gauche? It isn't I'm a piece of shit. It is thank you. And like this little blush from him on there, and it's just like, and it's like, damn right, you sister complex piece of shit on there. And this is the thing, again, Gauche is, without a doubt, I still think Gauche is probably one of my least favorite out of the Black Bulls. Like, I still think, again, we're not counting Gordon here, because Gordon hasn't really had his moments to shine. It's weird that Gordon's had combat moments, but we haven't really learned anything about him. And it's like, again, I think the sister complex, like, especially, it might honestly just be a lot with the anime as well, because I think they really dragged that joke to the ground, and they really did not. It made it a lot more creepier than it is, and it still is, no matter what. I just still think a lot of that stuff that he does with his sister is absolutely, like, really creepy and just weird. And I know it's a little trope thing, and I know some people actually like him. Like, I know some people generally like Gauche, and it's like, they're trying to better him out of his whole mentality of that, like, where it's like, they're fixing his attitude issue with how he treats the other Bulls. Nothing with that, though, but after, like, all of this, everyone kind of joins back up again. Like, we get to see the people that went to the Mirror World, like, on there. You get to see the rest of the Black Bulls, and Sally's there. You get to see, like, Zora and Noelle's, like, going around there, and, like, overall, it was this nice moment where it's like, everyone's coming back on there. It's like, immediately Zora, I love, like, Zora was just, like, squatting, just looking down at him, and he's like, man, look at these annoying, like, easygoing bunch around here. And, like, Noelle's there, like, kind of, like, little blushing and all that, and just like, oh, I slipped on there, and it was like, oh, never mind, and all that, and it's just like, and immediately they were like, oh, it's not like I was jealous or watching you guys having fun or anything. And it's like, oh, no, Noelle just wanted to get down there with the two and just have this nice, charming moment, and this really nice spread at the end where it's like, everyone's back together on there, and it's like, alright, the Black Bulls are back together again, and once we've recovered and all that, we're going after it. Like, a moment where it's like, alright then, so immediately, once we've had some time to kind of, like, give ourselves a little bit of, you know, a little bit of recuperation on there, they're not charging in, like, recklessly like idiots. It's like, they're... as much as it's really kind of annoying, they are full on admitting that they're abusing Charmy's powers. They're just flat out just abusing her recovery magic ability, and it's like, we've got it, might as well just keep abusing it, because that's how we're going to have to get. And the fact of the matter is, like, they're only getting away with this stuff. They would already be exhausted, so it's like, if we seal away Charmy at all in this, these guys are absolutely boned when it came to this. Again, like, with some of these chapters and all that, it's like, I think, like, generally this was a nice, decent conclusion to this little stuff that we had with the Gauche stuff. I kind of like as well that Finral was the one that got left behind. That was the last kind of chapter. It was like, every other Black Bull was there in that nice panel, but Finral, they still don't know that he's awake or anything. So it was like, no, they just made him like a butt of the joke for that one. Overall, yeah, like, I think these chapters were good. Like, I definitely think these are some really decent chapters. Which one did I prefer out of, like, 188 and 189? Generally, for the matter of fact and all that, I think we had some quite nice stuff between the two of them. I would actually say they're both probably equally on par. Like, I think they were just overall, like, if we go a little bit panel-wise and some of the stuff in there, I really liked a lot of the combination abilities that they were doing in 188 a little bit more when it was talking about, like, because they were doing some really clever stuff. Like, I generally love the fact that with Asta throwing his sword around, Gray used that as an opportunity to try and save Henry. Like, Henry, and, like, combined, like, all this really interesting combination of Asta, Gordon, like Henry and Gray, like this little four-man team that they had was a really interesting combination that I liked, and what they were doing with it. So overall, I think it was a very fantastic, like, chapter on for the most part. But I'm very curious to see what you guys think in the comment section down below, what you thought about these two chapters of Black Clover going back to back. So that is all from me though. So thank you always for watching, and I hope like, apologies for waiting so long on 1 a.m. after like the week was gone. I was like, and there was like Golden Week and everything. I was like, you know what, we're just gonna start off fresh for the new year, getting this chapter in once everything's all back and all that. So we're back and all that, and honestly, it was a really fun, enjoyable like pair of chapters, and it's nice to do a double review after a while. It's been a while since I've had to do this, so thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you guys though next time.